Hey everybody, even though this video isn't being released early to patrons or anything, it's kind of a special Hot Takes news video. It is still brought to you by our patrons, which includes Hangout Comics, Qua, Jeremy Vasquez, Kylie Den, Nestor Flores, Sodasan0424, and VideoGamer75. And I just want to give them a shout out, and all our patrons a shout out, and say thanks to them for bringing us stuff, and if you enjoy our other content and stuff, consider supporting us on Patreon so you can get things early. And stuff. Anyway, hey, hi, let's roll right into it. So, hopefully there's like a slideshow or something going on I want to do. So, this is immediately off Gencon's FFG in-flight report, aka FFG Live from Gencon, as you can't tell from the thumbnail. It's technically not over. They're doing the Q&A phase right now, though some might say that it ended 20 minutes ago. But we'll talk about that at the end, because we're going to kind of run through this stuff. All right? This is going to be very stream of consciousness. There's no notes. I just wrote down all the releases that have been announced and shown and stuff. And we're going to show some of the images I captured in the backdrop as we do. So I wrote them all down here. And, well, I'm disappointed by some of the list. But anyway, doesn't matter. We'll cover them all. And we'll do them in order. And I'll just kind of talk about some stuff. And if I don't care, I'll move on fast. And if not, I won't. How does that sound? Okay? Good. And you can watch the thing for yourself, obviously, after this is done. I'll include a link in the description. And a link in the end card, because I'm sure that the actual stream will be done and archived by the time this video is recorded, edited, uploaded. But for now, let's run through an executive summary. So they started off pretty strong. They had an actual graphics package, they had an actual announcement, and they announced a new game in the Arkham Horror franchise, I guess, whatever you want to call it, Final Hour, which is supposed to be kind of like, which game did they compare it to? Was it Eldritch Horror? It was, or Mansions, whatever. Anyway, I'm not an expert on these kinds of board games that they do, even though I love Cosmic Horror, Lovecraft Mythos stuff, Cthulhu Mythos. But basically, it's designed to be a short play game. It's only 8 turns, and you go around unlocking symbols, and if you have enough symbols, it gets easier to reverse the ritual and kind of counteract the bad oogly-boogly things. And if you get to the last turn, you have to, and it's supposed to be played in under an hour, which everybody knows means it will take about 4 hours, but still. Cool that they're doing fast-paced stuff, and they do okay with these kinds of games, so that's neato. That was the only Cosmic Horror-related thing, by the way, that you got, so if you were a fan of some of that other stuff, well, too bad. So, some stuff that actually excited me, they did a decent amount of talk. Mr. Navarro was out on stage, CEO of Fantasy Flight. So they did kind of a big talk on all this stuff, and kind of talk about some stuff. They spent a decent amount of time on Genesys, which really needed. I think I've talked about this before in reference to Legend of the Five Rings, but Genesys is kind of a little undersupported. It's been out like 2 years, and has as many source books, if not longer, with, less volume. It's got 2 years, and it's got the core book and 2 supplements. So first off, they announced that they're doing the expanded player's guide. This will include a lot of new player-facing options. It will include new genre rules for classic horror, post-apocalypse, and classical myth. So that's kind of interesting what kind of things they're going for. These will kind of be like the inserts at the back of the book, which will be basically like, hey, here's some stuff you can use for Weird War, and here's some stuff you can use for this, and that, and the other thing. That's kind of neat. Also will include new vehicle creation rules and new adversary creation rules and stuff to kind of give GMs an incentive, and it's only like $30 hardback, so PDF's probably pretty cheap. Hopefully they release those in a decent amount of time. Fantasy Flight games. I'm not pointed or anything. This is full-blown hot takes, guys. I'm like immediately coming off the stream, so my emotional state is very, very to the forefront, and I haven't had time to logic this out, so expect me to be a little spicy about some stuff. They didn't give any details, but they said that starting tomorrow, as of when the panel was held, they would be launching Genesys Foundry, which is a new thing on DriveThruRPG for community-made stuff, so you can make your own Genesys stuff and throw it up there so that people can buy it or download it for free. Which is really cool. That's something a lot of other games are doing with a lot of their community-related stuff. So that's really neat, because Genesys is really founded on a lot of this fan-made aspect, right? Like, they did their own releases, but it's very much a toolkit system. They even called it that. It's their system for any setting. So that's good that they're kind of doing that sort of stuff. And then they teased that next year there would be another setting playbook, and that Genesys Keyforge would be coming out, and they're still putting the final touches on the book. So, I don't know much more about Keyforge. I know it's really popular. I know it's got some interesting buzz in the industry. It sounds kind of like an interesting concept with all the different factions and stuff, so obviously if they release a RPG supplement for it, I'll look at it. I believe it's an IP that's wholly owned by FFG, so no shocker there. Then we got into the good shit. They started talking about Star Wars. So first off, they dropped a lot of Legion news on it. It's pretty interesting, but also I think some people are already a little bit disappointed. I don't want to say disappointed, but I am kind of curious about the logic of it. But basically, so they ran through they said that they announced new factions, and they said the Clone Wars core set is pre-available at Gencon. No details on when it will be available to the general public. They did not mention Shore Troopers or Dewbacks at all, though those are also available for pre-release. So look for a video spoiling all the contents of those packs soon, because people on the internet will buy them and spoil them. Thanks, guys. I can't go to Gencon. I'm poor. Even if I could go, I probably wouldn't buy it. Anyway, never mind me talking about my poorness. But they announced a whole slew of stuff. Most of the actual unit releases they announced are Clone Wars related or Clone Wars compatible. Though it did seem like a lot of these were for 2020, which is really interesting. All your core stuff will coming out this year. So you're looking at the Clone Wars core set and then the standalone clones, Barks, B1s, and Droidekas packs are all coming out this year. So you'll have a decent selection, but it doesn't look like anything further is coming out until next year. But we do know who our next commanders are going to be for both factions. They spoiled this. So we're looking at Captain Rex and Count Dooku coming out for their respective factions early next year. So that's super cool. The poses look pretty good. They did mention they're looking to keep up their trend of offering you a couple more customization options. The core units we're going to talk about in a second are noted as being more expensive for not necessarily seeming like they have extra units. So yeah, it looks like people might be getting some of that multi-post stuff. I just had a discussion on the forums where some people were like, sprues, they're the best. Sprues are best. If you don't like sprues, fuck you. We're going to get all the poses. And I'm like, whoa, calm down. FFG never actually... First of all, they're doing poses in their softer plastic. And second of all, they never actually said that this would mean that you'd get multi-pose generics. I don't think they showed anything that indicated the Phase 2 clone troopers, which is one of the things they announced, are on sprues. So I don't know. Maybe there will be more cards in here, or maybe there will be actually more pose options. So people are a little like, what is this? What does this look like? It's got a little bit more price. I don't know. Though, as some people have noted, the hard plastics do require a little bit more cost and a little bit more infrastructure, so it may just be that some of your unit costs are going up a little bit. But hopefully they're really good. Hey, I love Clone Troopers. There's going to be new options in there for Phase 2 stuff. Let me look at some of the screen grabs I have seen. I believe that one of the Phase 2 guys had a rocket launcher, as opposed to the current clone selection, which they fully spoiled. And yes, while I'm looking this up too, if people are wondering, because I may have said this out loud or I may not have, that there could be options for whether or not I would do like a full release spoilers on the Clone Wars core set. I decided against that because like almost all that stuff was already spoiled through FFG Live and other stuff. I have all the assets. I could do that video if people are interested. Drop me in the comments, but most of you probably know what all the stuff is. So no, I was wrong. They don't have a rocket launcher. He does appear to have a rotary blaster. I don't know if that's also Z6, but one of them has a single-man mortar. There also appear to be a couple different helmet stuff going on with these Phase 2 clone troopers. Not only do they have those helmets, but also at least the mortar guy has like the little mounted magnifiers, and the Z6 guy has his helmet off. So it may be that all of these guys can take their helmets off, which may explain why they're more expensive. And then they also announced Super Battle Droids, B2 Battle Droids. They are a core unit, which I think was kind of the direction I thought they might go. Like, I kind of wanted them to go, like, Special Forces, like, really capture that Clone Commando, Republic Commando, feel, where, like, if you've never played that game, first of all, you should. I know it's a little old, but that probably means it's pretty cheap to get, but it definitely puts you in the right feel for Clone Wars stuff. But it's a big deal that those guys, like, they are a huge pain in the butt to kill. But the B2s are going to be a new, stronger core unit. They're probably more expensive. This is actually look like a case where they're using the harder plastic sprues to get a little more posability, in that it looks like the B2's legs are fully flexible, so you can kind of like have them do a step, have them do a full crouch, squat, whatever you want to do, or have them stand tall. But otherwise, they're pretty rigid-bodied. I don't know too much about weapons, though at least one of them, I think they might only have one heavy weapon option looking at this spread, but they've got one of them who's got like a flamethrower or heavier blaster arm. And then they've got like either the arm blasters or their wrist rockets. And remember to watch out for those. So that's pretty cool. And then they announced the first heavies that are coming. They may have had to delay this a little bit And some people have said the heavies are a little bit more expensive. I think that might have to do with the sheer size of these beasties, because these will be the biggest vehicles they've launched yet. But we have confirmed the Trade Federation AAT battle tank, looking really rad in the fully painted collection there. I know I've only got the box art. And the TX-130 Saber tank. Everybody who said it was going to be the infantry fighting platform or whatever, or those people who said, it won't be the Saber, that's too obscure. You were wrong and I was right. I have to take these when I get them, because I'm wrong about other things. Like, scatter is exactly what people said it would be, and I'm still kind of like, FFG, why? Why you keep doing this to me with keywords? Your keywords don't make sense to me. Why is it called scatter if it lets you Well, I guess it makes some sense for it to be scatter, like, as to recohere a unit, but at the same time it's like, but why is the weapon called scatter? Why is it a weapon keyword scatter? Why isn't it whatever? That doesn't matter at all. But yeah, that's what scatter does. There was a French spoiler that did it. So yeah, super excited to see both of these. Love the look of the Saber tank sculpt. Really great. Gonna be very interested to see how these do on the table and see some more stuff. Unfortunately, I think it will be a while before we get out there. But they also announced 2 Battlefield expansions, which people have actually been clamoring for a little bit, and I like the look of both of them. So, let's see. Yeah, they're both announced, but they're at different levels. So first up, there's the Imperial Bunker expansion, which is exactly what it says. It's an Endor bunker. It looks like it's fully fleshed out, right? Like it's a big block of like multiple walls, doors, shit like that. And they say that it will come with new scenarios and new battlefield cards, which is cool. It's a little expensive though, but it looks like a very professional piece of terrain. And they even mentioned that if you can afford to buy 2 of them, you can kind of cram them back to back to make like a big pillbox or something. The second was they're also offering the Crashed Escape Pod Battlefield expansion. So that features a new piece of terrain, which is the Crashed Escape Pod from A New Hope. And also it comes with C-3PO and R2-D2, which I kind of like. So it says that not only are they good for campaign stuff, but also they will be quote-unquote playable for both Rebels and Republic. So that's kind of interesting. It looks like a kind of interesting terrain piece, you know, if you want to just buy terrain. It's not super expensive. It's, what is it? It's $40, you know, and it's a big solid terrain piece, but it also comes with a couple of units if you're interested in getting your gameplay jollies out, it's there. Or, like I said, you can get it just to get the piece of terrain, and it will also come with more scenario cards and stuff, which I'm excited about because I always want more of that stuff. Like, there's so many interesting ideas, and honestly, like, I think even with priority supplies and stuff, right? Like, the objective choices and the condition choices and stuff, like, right now they're fixed. There's only so many, right? And some people have, especially with the way the meta likes to take at armies, some people have very fixed ideas on what is what, right? Like, they know for sure what they want, and so you get a little fixed. I'd love to see a little bit more variety in that. Next up, let's move into X-Wing stuff. I don't do whole videos on X-Wing anymore, but there's a lot of X-Wing stuff in the backlog, and I might as well mention it. They talked about how recently they announced that they're bringing epic and huge ships back, which is cool. And then they basically soft announced the next wave. They said that there will be the YV666, the Houndstooth expansion pack, is coming back with the new Z95 sculpt. Then they said that for Star Wars Resistance, they'd be getting a couple of tie-ins. They're releasing the Fireball, which is kind of the signature Resistance ship from that. And then the pack is called Major Von Reg's tie. It's kind of the red custom special interceptor. I'm very curious to see what the actual title of that is. I mean, I understand why they're marketing it that way. It's just kind of like, you know, you could do better. You know, you could call it better. You could call it what it is. Did Disney not give you a name for it? You know, kind of stuff. So, yeah, right. Like, it's kind of shifty. I don't know, but whatever. The sculpt looks pretty cool. Like, that's one of those designs. Like, that's going in. A lot of people are speculating that there's going to be further releases for Episode 9 tie-in that are announced later. Because when are these coming? That's Q4 2019. So yeah, a lot of people are like, "Ooh, FFG, are you doing the thing again?" With like a tie dagger and some stuff. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Also, things that they know that the X-Wing community has been clamoring about, which to my mind, since the reason why I don't really do X-Wing videos is besides just, well, no, the community just sucks all the fun out of it for me. They're kind of a crappy community, at least in all the online like ethoses. Like, there's, I don't know, like, the game was in a state in 2.0 where it seemed like it was too competitively framed. It was too try hard for quote unquote fly casual. But at the same time, everybody was always complaining about, where's my point adjustments? Where's this thing? Where's that thing? Why does this work? Blah, blah, blah. This is broken. That is broken. My faction's still not good. I don't know. I didn't like the way the community is now built up around the game, at least like on FFG's on forums and a lot of other podcasts. And I'm just like, I don't want to be in this environment. If I get a chance, I've still got some of my 1E models. If I get a chance, I'll convert some of them to 2, and I'll get some stuff. Maybe I'll get some other expansion packs and things, like, because there's some designs I really like. Like, I really like the Saws version of the U-Wing with, like, the camo sculpt and stuff. But still, like, But I'm sure that what Navarro meant when he said that people are excited about it is that they're constantly kvetching about it, especially since Legion's getting card packs. So yes, X-Wing is getting its own card packs, which I think is good. It helps out a lot. So they've announced 3. So there's Hotshots and Aces, which is, they called it a reinforcement pack. But it's pilots for the original 5 factions, so to kind of like introduce some new characters, even some stuff out. I think that's good because a lot of people are like, well, where's my 2.0 version of this guy or that guy? I'm sure they won't get to everybody, but at the same time, I feel like they'll probably get some of your classics back in there, and this gives them a way to release them without doing it. And it's the more expensive version of the pack. It's $20, but it's still only $20 for at least 5 factions worth of cards. So like, even if you don't need some of them. And who knows, maybe you can, scalp the rest. Then there's 2 more. There's Fully Loaded, even though that's listed last, is a devices pack. It's full of a bunch of upgrades. It was specifically announced that it's full of a lot of upgrades that came out in those Clone Wars kits and starters that aren't in other factions yet. So this is basically them following up on their promise to be like, no, dude, you don't have to buy it a faction. You'll be able to just pick up this generic pack and get all the upgrades you need. And then lastly, the thing I'm super excited for, because this is one of the things I really wanted them to push when I was following X-Wing a lot, is Never Tell Me the Odds, which is an obstacles pack. So this is $15, and it includes new cardboard punch-outs and new rules and scenario stuff for X-Wing, which is super cool and what people really want. So that's going to be really good for the game. And then they said that we're not done with Armada. There's no specific details on Clone Wars stuff. I think they're still working on that. I don't know. Maybe they want to do a big push at a different con. They've kind of teased it a little bit, but it's still not fully fleshed out. I'm seeing some reports from some people that, like, Armada's release schedule is still too early to tell on stuff. I don't know if they're having, like, productions. Like, somebody asked them, I'm looking at a report on Twitter from somebody. Only know Dave, by the way, in case you're curious. Because I follow him on Twitter. That, like, any plans to do anything as big as the Super Star Destroyer again? And they're like, it takes a lot of money. Which to me says, don't expect that AT-AT anytime soon. Everybody's like, but they did the Super Star Destroyer. I'm like, dude, you don't understand how huge the AT-AT is in this scale, guys. It's enormous. That does make me kind of sad because I feel like the LAAT and the ATTE, which while more manageable than the AT-AT because the AT-AT's got such height, that's also going to put them in the range of like, no, those will be like extra special stuff. Like you'll get one of those a year period out of the company, which makes me a little bit sad. I won't talk about other stuff yet. We'll put that at the end. I got thoughts at the end. But they did announce 2 new packs for like Armada's Not Dead. First of all, they're doing their campaign expansion. By the way, if you're curious, because you might be the first time here, I don't really do videos on Armada. One, because Armada's release schedule got really slow. They were really slow there for a while. I don't think it's dead because they're actually doing some stuff. I just think they had a bit of a product dip while they were like, we don't know what we're doing with Armada. We need to like work on some things. And then we're trying to get Legion up to snuff, and we're trying to launch X-Wing 2. And then there possibly was some behind-the-scenes discussion, which is like, yo, dudes, do we need, like, an Armada 2.0? At the moment, no. They're not going that route. It doesn't seem so. But the SSD is officially out. It's available at Gencon and also should be opening in stores near you. They announced a second campaign expansion, which will include smaller play options and some more stuff, has some cool ideas, which is available for pre-release at Gen Con. And then they announced that, first off, there's the Onager Star Destroyer, which is really cool. I thought it was an FFG original design. It is not. There's some art of it in the Rebel files, but it is something that's not super detailed yet, so that's super cool that they get to do that. And it's this kind of like T-shaped Star Destroyer that's a really interesting look. It's a really good mini. And they pointed out it's got like a experimental Kyber crystal fueled front weapon. And then also what I think is the first physical description of it, the Nadiri Starhawk. They've been described, but they've never been like physically depicted or modeled before. and FFG gets the first ones. This is a new ship coming to the Rebels, which is pretty interesting. And it looks kind of like a Fat Boy Nebulon, but I think that's the point, right? So it's pretty interesting. I think it's a good sculpt. And we'll kind of see what those do for Armada in the future. I know some people are kind of disappointed because they've been teasing Clone Wars. I'm sure that Clone Wars for Armada is probably going through the same phases where, like, Clone Wars with X-Wing and with Legion does, where they need to, like, backpile a decent chunk of releases, possibly figure out how they're going to do, like, starter kits. Are they going to launch a whole new starter, or are they going to do faction starters like they did with X-Wing? It kind of makes sense, honestly, if you think about the 3 game lines that, like, X-Wing got first dibs on Clone Wars earlier this year, back when I still do videos about it even, where it was like, okay, we're doing X-Wing 2.0, it's revitalized, and we're going to bring the Clone Wars to it in time, and boom, we're ready. And then it's like, oh, and by the way, Clone Wars is coming to Legion 2 after that, but don't forget, it's coming to Armada 2. Like, so that was kind of like the priority last year. So it makes sense that it's like, this is the staggering. It's like, okay, it's very definitely full-blown come out to X-Wing, and now we're going to catch them up. It's coming out to Legion in these formats, and we're getting your fully fleshed out unit list. And basically, all of their announcements today are like, here's what's left in the rest of the year, and then here's all the Clone Wars announcements that are coming out in like the first half of next year. Which I know some people are like, man, that's forever, because it is, but also, like, that's how long it took the Civil War factions to kind of expand and blossom out, right? So, interesting, and we'll see how it works. And so then it's like, well, Armada's in the backseat, but here, we're not done, right? Like, Armada's not done, so this isn't the last thing. We're still kicking with their new product. And then Star Wars ended, and everybody got bored. No, I'm kidding. They talked about a Keyforge. They got a new set of Keyforge coming out. They got new accessories with the sister company under Asmodee coming out. I don't really follow Keyforge. It's an interesting concept, right? Where it's like, instead of you have to buy a bunch of randomized booster packs to build a deck you like, you can just buy a randomized deck that is algorithmically guaranteed to be a certain amount of playable. Whether it's your style of playable is kind of different, but, it's supposed to be kind of different. I like the concept a lot. As a person who was huge into that CCG crack when he was younger, like, I was the kid who spent a decent chunk of his allowance every week buying a couple of Yu-Gi-Oh! Boosters at the Target or the Walmart, in that one aisle off to the side where there were also baseball cards that nobody ever seemed to buy, but there was, like, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Down there, and sometimes some weird games nobody ever bought. Like, so I understand that itch, and I also understand why that's a kind of a slightly exploitative business model, and it really hurts me as an adult where I'm like, I can't waste this money. That's why FFG does living card games now, which are super cool. So Keyforge is kind of like a new take on the randomized subject. Is kind of neat. We'll see where it goes. I'm interested to read more about the setting in Genesys Keyforge, but we'll see. So this was their thing. And then they also said they have a big thing coming out. They're doing the, I should say, Marvel Champions card game. So this is a new living card game they're working on with the Marvel brand. Which, because of course, FFG's they're tight with Disney right now. They're one of they've been holding the Star Wars license for a while, and I know a lot of people are like, "Ooh, FFG, they could lose the Star Wars license someday." I'm like, not anytime soon. Their games are doing really good, and obviously now they've booked. I think this is their first Marvel-related product, so obviously they're working with another Disney-related company. So I feel like their business relationship is probably pretty strong. So yeah, it looks pretty interesting. They've got a couple different heroes picked out. Let me pull up the thing I saved. What do we got here? So they're announcing that the core set will come with... Oh, now this kind of turned out blurry. Captain Marvel, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Black Panther, and She-Hulk, and also their alter egos, which is kind of a mechanic of the game where, like, you can switch back and forth between your civilian identity and your secret identity kind of stuff. That's cool. They've kind of set it up so that it's supposed to be cooperative 1 to 4 players, and you play versus the deck. The 1-player thing makes me kind of interested. I'll have to wait until they premiere more about it. I'm not averse to playing solo. Is it a thing where literally it's one of those AI decks where like the thing plays itself? I'll be interested to see more news, I guess, because I'm not averse to Marvel, and they had they got some good designers on it, I think, and I'm confident in a lot of FFG's design with card games these days. Other than maybe like Destiny immediately turned me off because it was like, no, fuck you, randomized with dice. I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. I don't think I want to. I'm ready to go down that. I'm not ready to go down that path again as an adult yet. Okay. I've been burned before. But I want to see kind of how that mechanic works, but because, like, I don't have 4 people hanging out with me in person to play this with, so, well, 3, I guess, because I'd be one of them. But anyway, so I'm interested to see how the mechanics work. and if there'll be a TTS mod. If not, hey, I mean, you guys own a digital studio. Can you make digital releases of your games that I won't buy ever, but I'll look longingly on a Steam sale? Hi, Dresden Files cooperative card game. Anyway, so it looked kind of neat. I'm interested to know more, but it's not a groundbreaker. And then, let's get salty. So, okay. I'll say this. All right, on the one hand, FFG clarified this in their chat later. That the company that came out, I think it was Atomic something Games, was like, oh, they're a sister company under Asmodee, which is why they're out here at all, even though nobody's ever heard of them or this guy. That's cool, right? Like, he said he was friends with Navarro and stuff, and they kind of went back and forth. On the one hand, I approve of this immensely, of like signal boosting, of being like, yo, we're a big creator. We've got your attention right now. Here's a little something we'd like to throw out for something somebody else did, right? And I'll do that occasionally. I'll shout out, like I shouted out Dave earlier on Twitter. He does Dave of the Five Rings, right? He does regular reports on L5R and things. So I'm like, yeah, I follow him on Twitter for his articles and stuff. I'll shout out podcasts I listen to. I'll shout out other channels doing stuff if I care about that, and so on and so forth. Like, especially when I get information from them. But I don't advertise a show as the, hey, this is the me show. This is me. I'm talking to you about, like, right now. For instance, you're watching this to get spoilers and details about the announcement at FFG's in-flight report. If I suddenly put somebody else from a completely different show talking about a different product or different channel that was, kind of related to the same things but was unrelated, like if I suddenly pulled up like a Wizards of the Coast podcast to tell you about something going on with like D&D or Magic or something, right? You'd be a little like, what are you doing to me? Why did you suddenly, like, this is tangentially related to my interest, but why did you suddenly put a different guy on when my attention was on you for this topic? That's what happened. Don't even know his name. Didn't even care. Like, I told you, this is a hot take. This is like immediately after. I'm like, I didn't commit his name to memory. I'm bad with names, and just, it didn't spring up. And also, I zoned out because he talked for 20 fucking minutes about Marvel Crisis Protocol. So, the sister company to FFG under Asmodee is releasing I think it was 10 a team side. Like, I'll be honest, I stopped paying attention after a point. But it's a Marvel's mashup minigame. I got really disappointed for some stuff we're going to talk about at the end. And he talked for 20 minutes. And like, okay, the minis look good. There wasn't a lot of detail about the scale. They were like, yes, we are. There were some. I feel kind of weird about this talk too, right? Because like, I mean, it was full of the usual fluff you give it at an industry type talk or a presser. But this dude was just introduced by Fantasy Flight, right? And he's dropping lines like, I wanted to collect the best gaming talent I know and produce the best games. I'm like, subtle burn? Or like, yes, our games are in hard plastic. I'm like, whoa, dude. Considering that previously, stuff like Legion and some other miniatures games that Fantasy Flight was doing were in softer plastic. They've only recently had the infrastructure to transition to harder plastic, right? So, like, I don't know. I felt kind of weird that, like, obviously that wasn't his intention, but his hype-type language was, like, full of subtle jabs on FFG, whether they were intentional or not, which I thought, especially if they were intentional, that's a really shitty, or at least a kind of thoughtless way to phrase your presentation when you wouldn't fucking have a presentation if not for Fantasy Flight, right? You're on their in-flight report, their FFG Live, it's on their YouTube channel, and it's going to be on their YouTube channel forever that you were up there for 20 minutes talking about hatchback minis and dumpsters and other scenery bullshit. I'm a little mad. So yeah, like, I don't have anything against the game. I didn't really pay too close attention to the mechanics. I don't have anybody to play it with anyway right now, so like I'm not gonna like go out of my way, but it could be interesting, right? Like, I'm not opposed to it on a game prospect. I just think the announcement was handled very poorly, and the internet will let Fantasy Flight know that, and hopefully they don't do it again. And what I'm really mad about is no L5R news, guys. It's so sad. Like, I know they just announced the Crab Pack, which is cool, right? They got some really cool art design and some really cool cards and stuff. Very interesting to see. But it's been like a week since the fiction came out, so like a lot of people are like, hey, yo, are we going to get more fiction? We're supposedly, this is kind of on a tight time frame, right? It's very dramatic. So like, there's no news on the timeline of when marketing is going to release that, because I should point this out. This isn't on the actual L5R like dev team or story team. The writers have written it, the story guys have reviewed it, etc. The brand managers and everything. And basically, we're waiting for marketing to hit whatever arbitrary points on their schedule they want to for marketing stuff, right? Which is not inherently bad, it's just not necessarily what people want all the time. I mean, I will say some people, I'm not necessarily in 100% agreement with some people who are like, back in the old day, we released like a fiction a week. I'm like, dude, that's, I think I've even heard some of the old L5R writers comment this way, but like, that's a lot of burden to release new narrative stuff every week and also actually like integrate story options and actually like think about what you're doing for the future and make sure that the authors have enough turnaround time to get good editing, because editing is very important, and like details and do back and forth and stuff. I'm like, that's cool when you can pull it off, but I've heard a lot of people complain about the storyline in L5R in the last couple of blocks, and like, I'm sure doing it at such a fast pace did not help, right? There is no good that comes to the creative, the production end of making sure you get a product out fast and rapid fire, right? Like, that's good for the audience sometimes. That keeps them engaged and keeps them kind of on that roller coaster, which is obviously where I'm like, yeah, we're missing some of that now, right? You could at least explain kind of what your roadmap is, but enforcing that is never good for the actual product. That's just for the audience's sake. So if in this case, it sounds like marketing's kind of like figuring some shit out. I don't know. Games are in kind of a complex place with some stuff going on now. Last I heard, I haven't heard anything better about that. You know, it's the same with video games. There's a lot of hobby stuff with physical production where there's some chaotic things going on. But anyway, so no L5R news, for no extras like story news, no new RPG announcement, which really kills me. Like, okay, so on the one hand, Courts of Stone isn't out in PDF yet, which means it basically doesn't exist to me because I'm not paying 50% extra for a hardcover that only I can read, and it will suck up space on my shelves that I don't own, and I can't share it with my friends because they are on the internet in other physical places. I don't understand why that's so weird to people. I'm a 21st century game master, okay? All right. I've had this discussion before with other people on other shows. But one, there's no news about the PDF release. Shame. Terrible shame. Like, not even oh yeah, we'll get out this week. Like, That's a footnote. And second of all, it's also completely bucking the trend. All the previous titles from the core book until now were announced before the previous product was out, right? Like, Emerald Empire was announced before the core book actually hit. Shadowlands was announced before Emerald Empire actually hit. Courts of Stone was announced before Shadowlands actually hit. None of that. No idea at all. Like, a lot of people are like, I'm very curious where they're going to take the brand, and if they're doing these books on, like, at a Great Clan at a time, well, I mean, like I said, there's nothing to be gained from rushing the product, right? But when you're talking about very different areas, like Courts of Stone and Shadowlands are very, very different in a lot of ways, right? Like, the mechanical sort of things they bring to the table are I'm sure not too far off because it's all the same core rules, but like the direction and angles of the fluff is like completely different. So I would feel comfortable saying that like there's completely different works of different people at different scales on this, right? But I don't want them to rush, but I feel like this is the sort of thing where they're different topics and different writers probably, so they can probably keep a few plates spinning in the air at once. And just like, I'm so curious about what the format is. Like, are they actually going alphabetical order of the clans? Is Dragon next? Is it more based about topics you think are important? Like, was it important to hit the Shadowlands first because that was kind of underfleshed in the core, and then move on? Right? Like, what are you doing? There's so much we want to know about your release scheme here, and nothing. No new news about the Dragon Clan novella. No new novella announcements either. So it's just like, I don't know. I feel like L5R, which is one of the few IPs that FFG owns outright. They ended up buying it entirely from AEG, right? Like, I think their exception to this is, I think, because they're making Genesys out of it, I think they own the IP for Keyforge entirely, which is cool. Obviously, that's their new hotness. You know, that's a big deal that they got going on. That was a big success in the card game market, so that they're bringing it to their RPGs and stuff. But that's very localized, right? And then they've got their Terranoff Runebound Descent whatever thing, which there was no news about at all. Same with L5R. So it's like, I understand, you know, you probably have to do a certain amount of this PR stuff to keep your licensors happy, but you guys own this IP. It's a really big deal, and to kind of like completely blow it off, I kind of want to be like, but I don't know, like, transparency is all we ask a lot of the time, and like, I obviously know that like nobody wants to have that conversation with us, the audience, and be like, oh, so we're not in the state because the book's not finalized, but, you know, we're not in the state to announce that we are doing a Dragon book next because the primary writer for the Dragon Clan thing, you know, was in a car accident or a bike accident and he, broke his leg. So now he's like hopped up on painkillers for an extra couple of weeks and we can't finish our revisions. So the book would be delayed a couple of weeks. So we're playing it safe and we're not announcing it yet. That kind of stuff. Or like, actually, we've got like 3 books we're juggling. We haven't actually decided the release order because none of them are finalized because we're juggling so many books at once and we're trying to stay abreast of story stuff and all that blah, blah, blah. And the blah, 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 and the other blah, blah, blah. Like, there's so many mixture of real life shit and business shit things that could be happening. And obviously, nobody wants to see how the sausage is made. But at the same time, it really feels kind of like I said, it feels like kind of like a slap in the face to the audience to be like, yo, this is Fantasy Flight Live. Here, hi, we're going to talk about Fantasy Flight all day. Except for I'm going to, quote-unquote, insert a mid-credit scene. Only it's not. It's 20 minutes where this guy's just going to drone on and on about his product, which is from a sister company. So I guess they're not technically competing, but they're kind of competing. And, like, we're not going to tell you about their core stuff at all. Other than that, as I mentioned on Dave earlier, he actually asked some questions about L5R. Good on him. I was going to tweet him to be like, ask about L5R, but I figured it was okay. So they're still planning a pack a month. There will be support throughout next year at least. I'm sure there'll be support longer because it's, as far as I understand, like the RPG and stuff are selling really well. RPG, they're like, no, we're still working on RPG stuff, but that was all just it appears that the answer was the stock company answer. It's like when you ask a video game company about something or like a TV company, they're like, no, we are still working on that. Yes. It's like, right. Like there's no announcement details or anything, or there's no plot details. It's like if you asked somebody, like if you asked Netflix, hey, are you working on a second season of that show? And they're like, yeah, front and center, we're working on more. Next season is confirmed coming. That's it. So I don't know. I'm kind of, So yeah, I'm saddened that like I'm super hyped for the Legion stuff. That's really cool. Honestly, the X-Wing, like I know there's some people who are gonna complain, but the card packs are a really good step for X-Wing. And no matter how you feel about Resistance, which I know a lot of people, I never watched it because a lot of people told me that the animation budget was clearly lowered even from Rebels, which at times Rebels was operating on a very limited budget, especially compared to Uncle George pouring his own billions into making Clone Wars episodes, right? That's why Clone Wars looks so good, in case you're curious. George put a lot of his own money into making it beautiful. But also that it was also very much, even more so than Rebels, because Rebels had Filoni on it. It had a lot of those old hats, and it was like, yeah, there's some kids-friendly stuff, but also there's some serious shit in here. Like, nothing more bloody than you could show on the Disney Channel, but, like, some serious stuff was still happening, So, like, Resistance was supposedly even kiddier than that, and, like, more simplified and less of that stuff appealing to adults. I don't know, maybe it got better in later parts, but I just haven't been in a rush to pick up on it. But the sculpts look really good, right? The sculpts look really good. So that's okay. And Armada, I'm, like, super excited. Like, the models look really good. I'm really glad for FFG to get this opportunity to present new and unique fluff and kind of, like, actually leave their mark on parts of this franchise, which they've already done with the Raider, but still, like, no, that's really cool, right? That they can, like, get this opportunity to do some stuff, So that I'm not upset about. That's really cool. Love that they started early and strong with Genesys too. Like, boom, Genesys is not forgotten, right? Like, we're actually working on stuff, and it's stuff you care about, and it's not just necessarily shilling our own IPs. Not that I think that. Well, RRT was kind of like that, but I think that was just an excuse for them to frame a high fantasy book. But at the same time, you could argue they're shilling their IPs. And, like, building a branding that will survive a sudden collapse of the Star Wars license, Though, holy shit, guys, if you're working with Marvel, if you want to make a Genesis Marvel Supers game, please do. I'd be super excited for that. And honestly, if they wanted to make a Marvel's minigame, I'd be excited about that. But just, I don't know. Like, I don't want to be rude to this guy. I felt like he was coming on there to pour his heart out about the mini and, like, all the stuff he really liked out of the hobby and whatnot. And, like, obviously he was friends with Navarro, and they're kind of, like, all working together. But it was a small misstep that you get in some of these kind of industries, right? Where the corporate guys and the exec guys, they think, oh, it'll be perfectly fine. We're just cross-promoting a little, we'll have him come on. But then it's like, you end up sucking up a little too much extra time, or you end up talking, people feel disappointed that they're like, the on-brand thing is not talking about, right? Like, it's like, oops, I dropped my chair arm. I do that sometimes. It's broken. That's how poor we are down here. I can't afford a new office chair. But no, what I was saying was that, like it's like watching an E3 and then EA or somebody or, Xbox or whatever, they tune down for like 5 minutes to talk about like, oh, we do charities. Like, you can't be mad about that, right? You can't be mad because, oh, you're going to talk about charity, you're helping people out. But at the same time, you're a little bit disappointed. You're a little bit disappointed because you're here for like video game news and you want to see new product and stuff. And other than like acknowledging that it exists, there's not really a lot that you can do about that sort of like charity announcement, right? So this is it's different from that a little bit, but I think it's the same kind of thing where it's like, but this isn't the company or the product I came here to learn about. Why are you here? And just, I know he was announcing a new thing, right? And there were some technical difficulties going on. There were several throughout the whole panel experience, which I understand. Like, life's hard. Life's hard for a lot of things, and a lot of people underestimate how much of a pain in the ass it is, and they underestimate how much work goes into a rig and stuff. And I know everybody's just like, oh, the infrastructure's everywhere. Yeah, the your end infrastructure is everywhere. The their end infrastructure doesn't exist unless you haul the shit. And God, I don't know what that is. Like me, if I wanted to set up a remote panel recording, well, God knows, I'd probably take my laptop and maybe I'd plug a couple of mic stands. And even though I'm not talking about it now, I'm like, oh shit, there's hardware I don't own. It's complex. So that's kind of the negative reaction at the end there, where I'm like, I don't know. I think I've droned on for about 20 minutes myself. Sorry about that. But, And that's all the product. So I'm going to tear off my note sheet so you can hear it. There's your ASMR. And that's everything. Expect more videos soon about stuff. If you're new here, because you may have clicked on this, I get this a lot when I do these sort of videos where lots of people suddenly view it. Check out the channel. I do... we're Studio Omega. I do regular videos on Legion news and releases. I used to do some stuff on X-Wing, but I don't do that as much anymore. I always swear to myself, someday I'll figure out how to play Armada. It's just a little expensive to get into. But I will, I'll occasionally fire off with other Star Wars news. We talk about role-playing stuff on one of our shows, me and my co-host Lucky, the other part of the studio. I like to say that we're each 50% of the brain trust behind the studio. So our Everything podcast, What's Up? With Omega and Lucky, we talk about gaming topics regularly, both video games and tabletop games, and we do actual play recordings on the channel, so look forward to that. I am planning on actually running some L5R soon, so the L5R RPG, those will be up on the channel. And like I said, you can check out Legion videos, and you can check out L5R videos. I've done reviews of some of the novellas, and new RPG source books that have come out, and some other news and announcements and things. Keep an eye on. So, if you like that sort of stuff, hey, stick around. Subscribe to our channel. Check out lots of other videos I've done in the past. If you like this video, give it a like. That kind of helps things circulate. Leave any comments you have about the decision. If you were watching, how do you feel about the 20 or so minutes at the end for the Marvel Crisis Protocol? Were you super excited for this guy? Are you even more so extreme than me? You were like, this was a travesty. I'm terribly disappointed. I'm even angry. Because I'm not really angry about it, especially as the longer and longer I talk and the further distance we get, I'm not angry. I'm just kind of, like I said, I'm disappointed. Or are you in the middle where you're like, the product seems interesting, but yeah, he did kind of talk on for a long, and I was actually here to learn about FFG products kind of thing, right? Let me know. Let me know your stuff. Let me know what you got going on. You can also join our Discord. That link is in the description. That's good for stuff and things, hanging out, talking with people about all kinds of things. And like I said, consider subscribing and considering that bell for notifications so you can know when we post a new video about stuff, and you can keep informed about some of these subjects. And like I said at the front, consider supporting us on Patreon. Our patrons get access to certain videos early. They can get access to voting on topics for certain shows. High-level patrons can even listen to us record shows live and stuff, and it really helps us going. But if not, hey, you can just watch the videos. We're monetized now. All right. I don't have any other news to talk about other than just I was incredibly right about the heavy options for Clone Wars. Can't wait for more news on this stuff. I'm sure I'll get that to you soon. I am actually kind of excited to see what once the small sliver of the Legion community who's complaining about the order of releases, but that always happens. That's just the nature of the beast. They have to stagger stuff out, otherwise you'd be spending $400 every 6 months instead of $100 every month or 2 months. Anyway, staggering's not bad. I'm sure there's supply lines and marketing reasons for it. But I'm sure people will get into debating about some of the potential of those units that they've revealed and stuff, and further. And I'm looking forward to the occasional glimmer from the Armada community about their new stuff. Look forward to, like I said, somebody getting full access to Shore Troopers and dewbacks and kind of spoiling all that. And I will see you guys in those videos. All right, Omega out.